So, have you ever cut yourself while chopping an onion accidentally or strip falling off a bag? It hurts, but you banish it and later forgot. Now, there is a very huge aspect of biological process that occur beyond what happens when you cut. So that involve your immune system, your vessels, your cells of the skin. So in today's lecture, I'm going to discuss shortly what happens when you get a cut. So my name is Amram Sherry. Keep following for more. So introduction. What happens when you get a cut? Now, if you cut, it looks very simple and there's a wound that is being established. Now, what is a wound? A wound is a cut or a break through the skin surface. So definitely when this happens, the entire body launches a kind of huge complex of healing process that occur. So a very small or big cut might look so different to you, but beyond that, there is a huge healing process that occur. And that process involves 4 stages, which include hemostasis, inflammation, proliferation, and remodeling. Now, stage 1. Stage 1 is hemostasis. Hemostasis means to stop bleeding. Alright? So, it is a kind of physiological process or a functioning process that involves the body stopping bleeding from the vessels. So, homeostasis occurs by 1, constricting blood vessels. That means it occurs by narrowing the blood vessels. And then when the blood vessels are narrow and to prevent blood loss, we have the platelets, which are cells that form part of the blood that comes in to carry on clotting. So if you look here, there is process that involve hemostasis, vasoconstriction, primary hemostasis to clot formation. Now, vasoconstriction means the narrowing of the blood vessels. So if you look at this first image here, you see there's the red blood cell, okay? So let me put my highlighter on. All right. So there's the blood vessel, the blood cells, the red blood cells. Now the blood vessels up here and down here is narrowing so that this red blood cell cannot leave this entry. It will stuck there. So that is called vasoconstriction. So when it's narrow, the next thing is the kind of cells these fragile cells that you see here, called primary, is in the process of primary hemostasis. They will come at this opening entry, and then they will start to block this point so that other cells can come there through the process of fibrins, and then they form the clots. All right. So this is a clot formation. Clot means you have form of blockage somewhere due to proteins molecules that are being attached to them to help these cells to form the clot. So that is the first step when you get cut. When you get cut, the first thing that happens is hemostasis. Your blood vessels narrow to avoid bleeding. So after that happens, the next one is inflammation, which is called the defense mode. Now, when you think about defense, is to prevent or fight against some kind of bad person, right? So defense mode is the process that involves the white blood cells, going to clean the entire wound. Because imagine if you were going to be having a puncture wound by a nail, or maybe the old glass or the nerve while chopping an onion and etc. You're going to notice that the world we live in has so many microorganisms. So if you allow microorganisms to enter into this wound, and without the body defense mechanism, these microorganisms have the high probability of causing more infection and delaying the wound healing. So the white blood cells, more specifically, there are cells called neutrophil and macrophages. These are the two red blood cells that will go at the site of the cut. And then when they get there, how do you know that it's an inflammation process occurring? This shows signs of redness, swelling, and that of warmness and that of pain within that region or to that particular region. So when that happens, you find out that the red blood cell comes in and damage any other microorganism or foreign agents that are the site of the cut. All right, then the defense modes finish. The next step will involve what we call proliferation or tissue building. Now, to build is to establish something and lay them together, straighten them, and form a new structure. So now, the first thing that happens is angiogenesis, or we say the new blood vessels are being formed. So when new blood vessels are being formed, is the process of angiogenesis. Now, the next thing that will happen is granulation. So granulation is to build new tissues, all right? So that can happen in this kind of process you see in here. If on inflammation, the next thing is proliferation. So macrophages eat up the dead foreign agents, the dead cells. After it is done, then the proliferation now begins. And this happens through the process of the kind of protein called collagens. Now, collagens are produced by another form of a protein called a kind of cells called fibroblasts. Now, the fibroblast produces collagens, and collagens are proteins that straighten and form the kind of mat-like structure so that muscles fibers can be building and connect them to form tissue. And also blood vessels will be forming in that process. So we call this stage the proliferation stage, or in short, the growth stage of the tissues. All right. Then the next one is the maturation or remodeling, right? So we want to restructure, we want to fix this whole thing. And now the tissue has to be straightened and the scar tissue may be formed at the point. Okay. So during this time, both the epidermis and the dermis layer of the skin, and now all of the tissues, they are straightening, they are being modeled in a rightful path they're supposed to be modeled in, and there is a tissue form, the scar tissue now forming a very new tissue layer. And when this happens, maturation or the remodeling process ends. Now there are a few things we need to know, which is the factors that affect healing. So if you have a cut and the wound is available now, there are things that makes the wound difficult to heal. One of them is infection. So infection, that is for the microorganisms to invade the body. And what is a microorganism? Microorganisms are tiny living things that affect our entire body when they invade them. So they include like bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoas, and other parasites. Okay. Now they have a tendency to destroy you if you have a wound. So once they get into the wound and infect the wound, they destroy the wounds. Like sometimes you see the cases like gangrene, where the person feet look black due to low oxygen, so these things are because of the bacteria affecting wounds. And then the next thing is poor nutrition. So you cannot have kind of diet that is very poor, is not balanced. You just eat too much of carbohydrate food of different kind, and then you want your wounds to heal, because the wound will not heal because you are just eating carbohydrate, and carbohydrate are just energy food. You need proteins, food, you need vitamins and other foods that will help your body to regenerate the tissues. The next one is a chronic disease. Now, having chronic disease impose a very huge burden on the immune system. Like for example, diabetes, right? Diabetes patient, once the person's sugar is not being metabolized by insulins in the body, now what happens is that it circulates through the bloodstream and even all to the tissues. As a result, if bacteria enter, they use that kind of tissues easily and damage the person because of the kind of chronic disease. So these are factors that affect wound healing, infection, poor nutrition, and chronic diseases. All right. Then the last thing is a recap on what we just learned in terms of how wounds heal. So when we get cut, the process that occurs to repair that cut is called wound healing. So wound healing involves stages, Hemostasis, to prevent the blood from flowing out of the body or to prevent bleeding or stop bleeding. Inflammation is a defense stage where the white blood cells goes to the site after the blood stop flowing out. They go and look for any microorganisms to destroy them and clean the wound. Then the next one, after the cleaning of the wound by the white blood cells, is proliferation. Now, when proliferation occurs, it means that the tissues are going to be growing, then blood vessels are going to grow through the help of the fibroblasts producing collagens, which are proteins that act as a thread-like structure, strong thread-like structure to build muscles fibers. And then the maturation is also called remodeling, is where these tissues are straightening and putting into the right path as it were before. So thank you so much. These are the stages, and thank you for your attention. Any question, please leave it in the comment section. Please don't forget to share this video, like. My name is Amaram Shari again, and this is Biomedical Sciences. Thank you.